Once again, hug the midline, and the circle will help you there. Once again, work the magic circle in the core, upper inner thighs into the abdominal wall. Work with rhythm. And now for the most challenging one, the crisscross. Start with the legs stable and still. Work the upper body, the obliques, against that stable body. Holding the magic circle still is the challenge. And rest. Lengthen to the legs, lengthen to the arms, and lift the chest. Inhale and exhale up. Press down, reach out to the heel. Work the upper inner thighs into the deepening of the powerhouse. This time we work the outside of the thigh and the bottom. Lengthen the top leg. In opposition, once again, lengthen to the powerhouse. Make sure the hips stay stacked on top of each other and the shoulders stay stacked properly. To transition, tilt the circle back, bottom leg goes under, handle, and circle back over. Deepen the powerhouse in and lift. Release. Lift through the powerhouse and release. Lift, and for the third set, work with the breath. Inhale, lift, and honor every position.
And once again, you just slide that back leg back, which is again the equivalent of taking a bigger step. So you feel better contact with the earth between the balls of your feet and the heels of your feet and the floor. And once again, just like the other side, whether you bring your body down and low, or arch your body up and back, this will change the emphasis. The two sides, of course, will usually be different. Sometimes it's a minor difference. Sometimes it's a major difference. The angle of the knee and the angle of the front foot, this is entirely individual. Some people the knee carries wide to the side, and other people the knee carries more straight forward. And the foot usually parallels the position of that knee. How wide the knee turns out is typical of how wide the foot turns out. This is not always the case. Some people feel more comfortable with the foot externally rotated. So if the front foot is externally rotated slightly more than the knee, they actually feel better support this way. This is not always the case. But since this joint is not bearing a lot of weight, however you feel comfortable on that front leg is fine. Most of the weight is being borne by the arms and the torso and the body. All of yin yoga shares this characteristic, that even though we are trying to focus on the bones and the fascia of the body, it's virtually impossible to eliminate those structures and isolate them away from the muscles. So there's always a muscular element involved in a yin practice. That being the case, sometimes tensing a muscle, such as tensing the muscle in your thigh, or tensing the muscle in your groin, and then relaxing it, can be helpful to settle in for a longer or more comfortable time into a yin pose. And slowly step back. Child's pose for a moment. Just to rest the stress on the ankles and the knees and the groin. We're now 2 minutes into a 4-minute posture. So what Torsten doesn't get out of this posture is a strong hamstring stretch. But he still gets a very strong and beneficial working of this hip joint in here and of the liver and kidney meridians through his groin. The other variability in this pose is what does it work also is dependent on one's flexibilities. Typically what it's most dependent upon is what is the rotation of the pelvis. The tilt of Susie's sacrum or pelvis, where my palm is virtually parallel to the floor, which means there's no stretch to her lower spine. Torsten has a very gentle stretch to the spine. Cassandra has virtually no stretch to her spine, but slightly in this area because of how it's rounded. And then Brian, because his pelvis is slanted at about 45 degrees, his spine is going to be rounded. So for Cassandra and for Susie, perhaps no stress on the sacrum lower spine. For Brian, there will always be some stress or tension or decompression in this region. So the posture doesn't affect all bodily types the same. And slowly come up, please. You can draw your legs in, hug your knees for a moment, sort of relaxing the tension that develops in the groin. Gently arching into the lower spine for the first time. Cassandra demonstrates an extreme variation where you bend the back leg up, reaching and grabbing the back foot with one or both hands. Susie demonstrates an example of exaggerating the stress not so much on the spine, but on the hip flexors of the back thigh. Needless to say, these variations are not accessible to all body types. But if they are accessible to you, these are perfectly viable things to explore. And slowly, gently release. Step back into the downward dog for a moment. Treading the ankles and the knees and the heels just a bit to work the stiffness out. And then we'll change sides and bring your left foot forward, please. The same, this time sleeping swan is first, sometimes called square pose. Right leg goes over the left, the ankle on the knee. Left ankle is under the right knee. So these bones here parallel one another approximately. So this is a loose or an open shoelace pose, sometimes called square pose. And if you look at the differences here, Susie's leg is lying flat, Cassandra's leg is lying flat, Torsten's leg is up just a bit, and Brian's leg is way up. These differences in these body types is not due to muscular tension. We'll demonstrate very soon the differences here where the legs are placed are due to skeletal differences. Now, if you lay yourselves forward, trying to exaggerate the stresses here. Once you've made the initial effort to posture yourself, your job is just to yield into weight. This is the difficult aspect of yin yoga. It's so tempting to want to be more aggressive, to use more weight, more force, more muscle, get there faster. You come to realize over time that you can't rush it. The difficulty of yin yoga and the strength of yin yoga is learning what you can and you cannot do and developing patient endurance. And slowly release and come up, please. And stretch your legs out in front of you for a moment. Two more strong moves for the hips. First, a half saddle pose, and then we'll do the full saddle pose. So fold your right leg back, And then very carefully lower yourself backwards. Now I have asked Torsten to do this posture with his foot pointed this way, close to his body, and to allow his knee to drift slightly out to the side. The reason I asked him to do that is because I want him to do it as relaxed as is possible. Okay? And if you look at the different knee positions on the floor, we have a huge variety here. If you don't have the hip for it here, trying to turn your foot this way is dangerous and destructive because you'll put too much stress on your knee. For many people, to even think about flexing their foot this way makes them cringe. And if that makes you cringe, by all means don't do it. This is not the DVD that explores all these skeletal differences, but you have to look and see that it's perfectly safe and actually effective for Brian and Cassandra to hold their body in this way. They can even, if they want, bend up the free leg to exaggerate the stretch on the thigh. Brian places his left foot on the floor. Cassandra can actually hug her left knee to her chest. This exaggerates the stress of this posture. In Taoism, this is called following the watercourse way, the path of least resistance. The hips, the acetabulums, the hip sockets of the body do not sit the same on everybody.
Now inhale 4. And hold breath. Sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma. Exhale. Wahe, Guru. Inhale 4. And hold the breath. Sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma, sa, ta, na, ma. Exhale.